triad is made up of the root, a third, and a fifth. Triads can be built on each degree of the major and minor scale, like in C major. They take their name from the degrees of the scale on which they're based. What that means is the triad on the tonic degree of the scale is called the tonic triad. The triad on the dominant degree of the scale is called the dominant triad. A quick way to show this is to use Roman numerals for the triads in the scale. Capital symbols imply major chords, while lowercase symbols imply minor chords. The next video will go more into detail about the function of some of these chords. Triads are classified as major, minor, augmented, and diminished. Major triads have a major third and a perfect fifth. A minor triad has a minor third and a perfect fifth. An augmented triad has a major third and an augmented fifth. And a diminished triad has a minor third and a diminished fifth. Applying all these to a major scale, chords 1, 4, and 5 are major, chords 2, 3, and 6 are minor, and chord 7 is diminished. Minor scales are a little silly because there are 3 main scales which we can use. For the harmonic scale, these are the triads used. For the melodic scale, these are the triads used. And for the natural scale, these are the triads used. When writing music, it's conventional to use the harmonic scale, but to keep the median triad major, because tradition. But you can go crazy if you want to. All these triads I've shown have been in root position, but you can change them and have inversions. Inversions are where you rearrange the notes of a triad. For example, I can take this bottom note, C, and put it at the top of the chord. It's still the same note, but it leaves a new note at the bottom of the chord, which is now E. When the third of a chord is at the bottom, the chord is in first position, and when the fifth of a chord is at the bottom, the chord is in second position. To clarify, when I say the third or the fifth, I'm talking about the interval from the root note. When the chord is in root position, it's the easiest way to refer to the notes, I think. Anyways, when Roman numerals are used to represent triads, small letters can be used to show the inversions of the triads if needed. A is referred to as root position, B is referred to as first position, and C is referred to as second position. So 1C means the second version of the tonic triad. Final bits on triad. If the notes are arranged as close as possible to each other, then it's called close position. If the notes are spaced out, then it's called open position. Something like that. A triad is the simplest form of a chord. Chords are loosely defined as 3 or more notes played at the same time. So this is a chord, as well as this. The layout of a chord can be affected by the instrument. For example, an E major chord can be played like this on the piano. But on guitar, it can be played like this. For a choir, it might sound like this. Speaking of chords, they're identified in the same way as triads are. So a tonic triad is a tonic chord that belongs to a scale. Same thing applies with inversions. You get the idea. To put it into context, in C major, this chord is a tonic root position C major chord, or 1A. And this chord is a dominant second inversion G major chord, or 5C. More elaborate chords can use the 7th interval from the root to create 7 chords. Very exciting. You can add a 7th to any chord, but the most common is to use 5-7, which is the dominant 7. Because 7ths are made up of 4 notes, there are now 4 inversions total. In minor keys, the third above the root of the dominant 7th chord is always raised by a semitone. What that means is, if we're in C minor, this would be the 5th chord, but we're raising the third upper semitone, so it becomes a dominant 7, which resolves to C minor. It's very nice. Jazz notation makes a very good password, but here I'll show you what it all means. The letter name of the root of the chord is shown as a capital letter. The chord is assumed to be major unless there's a little m indicating that it's a minor chord, which uses a minor third. Plus or aug means that the triad is augmented, or a dash or dim means that it's diminished. Any numbers added represent intervals from the root. For example, a C6 is a C major with a 6th interval added. C7 implies a minor 7th, C major 7 implies a major 7th, and C7, flat 5, sharp 11, flat 13 is a good password to have. And it's this chord. Finally, a slash means that the bass note is specified when playing, so a D minor over F means a D minor with an F in the bass, which just so happens to be the third of the chord. Jazz harmony is meant to give you an outline of the harmony, nothing too specific. If you're studying popular music, skip this chapter because this is all about Baroque shorthand stuff. Like jazz notation, figured bass is a short way of writing out harmony. Usually written in the bass part, the numbers represent the intervals above the root note that are needed to form harmony. For example, the third here represents a third, and the 5 represents a fifth. So in relation to the key signature, a major third and a perfect fifth is formed, which results in C major. This can be performed in many ways as shown. As 5-3 is a root position chord, 6-3 is a first inversion chord. In this case, the bass is on an E because of the C major chord. The E would be the root in first position. 6-4 implies a second inversion chord. Same idea going on here. If you're still watching, here are some more annoying bits to learn. An accidental next to the figured bass number refers to the note itself. So here, the 6 natural means an E natural, which means we need to ignore the key signature and sharpen the E flat. Normally 5-3 is not written and it's assumed if there's a blank spot. If you happen to find a random accidental, then that's implying that the third is affected by the accidental, i.e. this means E major instead of E minor. 6-3 chords are written as 6 because lazy. If a third has an accidental, then just the accidental is written, more lazy. In really old music, a dash through the lines implied that the note is to be sharpened. Moving over to 7th chords, the full form of a 7th chord is shown here, but composers tend to use the shorthand version because of immense lazy. If the 7th chord has to be altered, then composers write out the full numbers to try and make it less complicated, but at this point it's a bit counterproductive. That's it for figured bass, no more. This looks scary. This looks scary, but these are the chords which are being used, which aren't scary. Chords arranged like this are called broken chords. If the chords are arranged in an ascending or descending order with all the notes belonging to the chord, then it's called an arpeggio. Arpeggio. And to end with a question, what is a triad in its simplest form? A chord! And that's it. Hope you learned something, and I'll catch you dudes next time.